Hi, good morning. My name is Paul Vincent Gregory S. Gregorio, and the topic that was assigned to me is Presidential Decree 1006. Presidential Decree number 1006 focuses on providing the professionalization of teacher, regulating their practices in the Philippines and for other purposes. Whereas the Constitution provides that all educational institutions shall be under the provision of and subject to regulation by the state, and requires that the state shall establish and maintain a complete, adequate, and integrated system of education relevant to the goal of the national government. Whereas in the pursuit of these objectives, the Department of Education and Culture has adopted the ways and means of overseeing all the educational institutions in the country. Whereas the supervisory function of the DEC or DEC has been primarily beamed toward ensuring that the educational institutions inculcate in the studentry towards of the country, teach the duties of citizenship, and develop moral characters, personal discipline, and scientific, technological, and vocational efficiency. Whereas to implement these objectives, the institution have relied upon their teacher whose direct and continuing interaction with the young people and the children make them potent forces of the development of proper attitudes among the citizenry. So in this presidential decree, the institution relied to their teachers to be able to teach this student or these children because they are the one who is supervising this student in school, like in a young. Whereas this accounts for the tremendous growth of the teaching population, comprising in the civil service sector alone more than 300,000 teachers deployed all over the country. Whereas to ensure that in the immediacy and urgency of teacher recruitment, qualitative requirements are not overlooked, it has become necessary to regulate the teaching profession. Whereas, although teaching requires a number of years of collegiate study, it is the only course that it is not yet considered a profession. For me, I kind of disagree on this phrases or this statement because I consider teaching is a profession. Whereas in the recognition of the vital role of teachers in national building and as an incentive to raise the morale of teachers, it is imperative that they are considered as professionals and teaching be recognized as a profession. Here we go. So on that statement a while ago, I really disagree that teacher is not considered as profession. But here in this statement, they recognize as teacher as professionals because they are really are because they are doing their best. They are doing this hard work to become the best teachers and not to become the best, not for themselves but for other people, and to share their knowledge to this student or to these kids to be the better person one day and to become professionals someday. Section 1. This decree shall be known as the Decree Professionalizing Teaching. Section 2. Declaration of Policy. It is hereby declared a policy that teacher education shall be given primary concern and attention by the government and shall be of the highest quality and is strong oriented to the Philippine conditions and to the needs of the aspiration of the Filipino people, even as it seeks enrichment from the adaptable. Section 3. Definition of terms as used in this decree. The following shall be constructed as follows. A. Teaching refers to the profession primarily concerned with the classroom instruction at the elementary and secondary level, in accordance with the curriculum prescribed by the National Board of Education, whether in the part-time or full-time basis in the public or private schools. Teachers refers to all the person engaged in the teaching at the elementary and secondary levels, whether on a full-time or part-time basis, including guidance counselors, school librarians, industrial arts or vocational teachers, and all other person performing supervisory and or administrative functions in all schools in the aforesaid levels and legally qualified to practice teaching under this decree. Board refers to the National Board for Teachers duly constituted under this decree. Section 5. Powers and Duties. The board shall have the following powers and duties. Appoint a set of examiners for every examination who will determine and prepare the contents of the board examinations for teachers, hereinafter referred to as examination, in the elementary and secondary level or instruction, to be held at least once a year. Determine and fix places and dates of examination, appoints supervisors and room examiners from among the employees of the government who shall be entitled to a daily allowance to be fixed by the board for every examination they actually attended. Use the buildings and facilities of public and private schools for examination purposes. Approve applications to take examination and approve the release of examinations result. Look from time to time into the conditions affecting the practices of the teaching professions. Adopt such measures as may be deemed proper for the enhancement of said profession and or maintenance of the professional standards and ethics. Issue, suspend, revoke, replace, or reuse professional teacher certificate and administer oaths. Appoint, subject to the provision of existing laws, such officials and employees are necessary in the effective performance of each function and responsibilities. Prescribe their duties and fix their compensation. Prescribe and collect examination and other fees as it may deem proper. And promulgate rules and regulation and excuse or exercise such other powers, function and duties as may be necessary to carry into effect the purpose of this decree. So dito na pumapasok yung PRC. Siguro ito yung duty ng PRC na sila yung nag-aano ng exam, yung lahat ng nasa presidential decree or nasa section 5 na ito, feeling ko PRC yung naka-assign para gawin ito dito sa ating bansa. Section 6. Qualification requirements for examination applicants. No applicant shall be admitted to take the examination unless, on the date of filing of the application, he shall have complied with the following requirements. Except those who have been engaged in teaching as herein defined for at least 5 years in school in the Philippines, not organized exclusively for nationals of a foreign country at the time of effectivity of this decree. The applicant must be a citizen of the Philippines, that he is a good of moral character, that he is free from any physical or mental defect which will incapacitate him to render efficient service, and that he possesses the following minimum educational qualifications. For teachers in the kindergarten and elementary grades, bachelor's degree in elementary education or BSE Ed for its equivalent. Teachers of the secondary schools, bachelor's degree in education or its equivalent with a major and minor, or a bachelor degree in arts or science with at least 18 units in professional education. And for teacher of secondary vocational and 2-year technical courses, bachelor's degree in the field of specialization with at least 18 units in professional education. All applicants shall be filed with an office or offices designated by the board, preferably the offices of the Civil Service Commission, the Department of Education and Culture. These offices shall be seen and approve such applications and issue the corresponding permits to take the examination to qualify applicants. Section 7. Appointment of examiners. The board shall appoint a set of examiners for every examination who are recognized authority in the teacher education, and their names shall not be dissolved until after the release of the result of examination. They shall each receive as compensation a sum of not less than 5 pesos for each examinee, as may be determined by the board, but in no case shall each examiner receive more than 18,000 per examination. Any examiner who is in the service of the government shall receive the compensation herein provided in addition to his salary. Section 8. Scope of the examination. The examination shall consist of written tests, the scope of which shall be determined by the board, taking into consideration the teaching plan of the schools legally constituted in the Philippines. Section 9. Rating in the examination. In order that a candidate may be deemed to have successfully passed the examinations, he must have obtained a general average of at least 70% in all subjects, with no rating below 50% in any subject. Section 10. Report of the result of examination. The examiner shall report the rating obtained by each candidate to the board within 150 days after the last day of examination, unless extended by the latter. Section 11. Issuance of certificates. Teachers who have passed the examination given by the Civil Service Commission or jointly by the Civil Service Commission and the Department of Education and Culture shall be considered as having passed the board examinations for teachers. The board may consider their certificates of rating as certificates of eligibility or issues an entirely new certificate upon registration of the teacher and payment of the corresponding fees. This provision shall likewise apply to those teachers who have permanent appointment under the Magna Carta for public school teachers and all other who may be qualified for registration as professional teachers under the decree. Section 12. Registration. The Civil Service Commission shall, as an arm of board, registered holders of the professional teacher certificate which registration shall evidence that the registrant is entitled to all the rights and privilege of the professional teacher until and unless the certificate is suspended or cancelled by the board for just. Section 13. Reissuance of revoked certificates and replacement of lost certificates. The board may, for the reason of equity and justice, and upon proper application, therefore, issue another copy, original or duplicate, upon payment for the required fee of a certificate which has been revoked. A new certificate to replace a lost, destroyed, or mutilated certificate may be issued subject to the rules of the board. Section 14. Registration by reciprocity. The Civil Service Commission shall, upon approval of the board, effect the registration without examination of a teacher validity registered under the laws of the foreign state or country, provided that the requirements for registration is said foreign state or country are substantially the same as those required and contemplated by this decree, and the law of such foreign state or country allows citizens of the Philippines to practice the profession on the same basis and grant the same privileges as the citizen or subjects of such foreign state or country, provided finally that the applicant shall submit competent and exclusive documentary evidence confirmed by the Department of Foreign Affairs showing that his country's existing laws permits citizens of the Philippines to practice teaching profession under the rules and regulations governing citizens thereof. Section 15. Prohibition. 3 years after the effectivity of this decree, no person shall be engaged in teaching or act as a teacher as defined in this decree, whether it is public or private elementary or secondary school, unless he is a holder of a professional teacher certificate or is considered as a professional teacher under this decree. Section 16. Penal provision. Any person who shall practice the teaching without a valid professional teacher certificate, or any person presenting as his or her own the certificate of other, or any person giving any false or forged evidence in order to obtain a professional teacher certificate or admission to an examination, or any person assuming himself as a registered professional teacher, or any person violating any provision of this decree shall be penalized by a fine of not less than 1,000 pesos nor more than 5,000 pesos with subsidiary imprisonment, or to suffer an imprisonment no not less than 6 months nor more than 2 years, or both such fine and imprisonment at the discretion of the court. Section 17. Repealing clause. All acts, decrees, executive orders, administrative orders, rules, and regulations are parts of thereof, inconsistent with the provision of this decree, are hereby repealed or modified accordingly. Section 18. Separability clause. In case any provision of this decree or any portion thereof is declared unconstitutional by a competent court, other provisions shall not be affected thereby. Section 19. Effectivity. This decree shall take effect January 1, 1977. Thank you. That's end my report.